What's going on YouTube? This is RockChalk14 here. I got a video, a new kind of thing I'm going to do from week to week now. I started doing some weekly fantasy football stuff on FanDuel.com. Fantasy football got the exemption for the Online Gambling Act, and so it's a legal way to you can play online legally and those kinds of things. In this video, I'm not going to plug my account or anything like that. I don't really care about that sort of thing. It is the same as what it is here. I mean, it's RockChalk14 on there, but I don't care about getting references or anything like that. What I wanted to do is I've messed around for the first 4 weeks in the NFL season with it, and this is my first time with this site, and I know a lot of people play MLB on it, and I'm sure you can make a lot of money on MLB, but I've had a lot more fun with NFL. And I found a couple of things over the last 4 weeks that have been that I've been really successful with, either through trial by error or just sort of kind of figuring stuff out. And so I figured I'd share that with the community. It's just something kind of fun that you can play for free, so it's something interesting to do. What it is it's salary cap football, week to week, and you can play in a multitude of ways. And so I'm going to kind of go through my little checklist of things to help you be successful, and things to keep in mind when you decide to play on the site. The first thing that I instantly came out, or I learned the hard way the first time, is that if you really are interested in, especially if you really want to make money, or if you really care about being consistent, you gotta play head-to-head matches. That's the only way to do it. I've entered tournaments and things like that, and it's such a crapshoot when you play those tournaments. They get you to do tournaments by having some like really top prizes. So like it's like $25 entry, and you could win 15 grand. But the truth of the matter is that there are gonna be over 10,000 people playing, and the odds of you winning that are astronomical. And furthermore, to even money, it looks like they're like, oh, you know, the first 1,000 people money, you don't have to be one of the top 1,000. But when you really look at it from an odds standpoint, you have to be in the top 10%. Whereas if you play head-to-head, I mean, you just have to beat one person, and that's it. Obviously, the payout's not going to be as big, but your success rate's going to go up big time. So I say ditch the tournaments. I know that's their big pull. Ditch the tournaments and play head-to-head. It's the only way to go. The second thing that I found was to play in a multitude of matchups. So say you decide you're going to gamble $100 for the week. You're going to play $100. Instead of playing in one $100 match or two $50 matches, play in 10 $10 matches. You get to a point where in order to just be ahead for the week, all you have to do is just win one above half. So if you win one above half, you are ahead for the week. You can't break even because they do take a 20% juice like any site would. So that's one thing I found. And so I started with an extra small bankroll, and I've slowly built it up. In this last weekend, for example, I decided I was playing with $140, and so I played 14 head-to-head $10 matches, and I won 13 of the 14, which was a really good week for me. But the thing about it is that you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and when you take your bankroll and you split it in half, if you lose one match, the guy you happen to be playing against is really, has an excellent lineup, then you lose half your bankroll. Whereas opposed to this, you have a better chance of coming out ahead. So that's my second thing. The third thing I think you got to do is you got to do your research. When you play a lot of this, you see a lot of people that come up with some lineups, and you say, I can tell that you kind of went with a gut feeling thing. You didn't really look at the research, because in salary cap football, you can't have all studs on your team. You can have a couple, one or two, and I'll get into roster construction in a second and kind of where I think you should go. But you really got to do your research. It really doesn't take that much time, and honestly, that's the most fun I have, is actually sitting there. I probably spend maybe a half hour a week at the most doing the research. I listen to the analysts on ESPN and those other sites like that, CBS, those kinds of sites. However, doing your own research really helps. It makes you feel more confident in kind of your choices. You kind of want to look, when you do research, not just how well certain players have been doing, but obviously their matchups. And a lot of that comes from when, like I said, you can't have all studs. And so there are certain players, like last week, for example, Bilal Powell was a great value player because he was going against a team where he was going to be successful, and he had gotten the start, and he wasn't going to be great, but at the price point that you could buy him at, he was going to be a good plug-in. So you got to do your research. The next thing before you go to do the roster construction, something I figured out the hard way the first time, is you got to look at their scoring system. It's important to note that it's not a full PPR, but it's a half point PPR. And what I have found when I go to my roster construction is that you need to really invest. You probably, of your marquee players, you can really afford like 3 big name players if you really look at the whole thing. And since you got to put 2 of them, got to be either wide receivers or a wide receiver in Jimmy Graham, because those guys that are consistent studs at that position score higher and honestly have been more consistent this year. I think you got to look at the scoring system, look at where the points come from, place a higher value in the wide receivers or your backs that are going to catch the ball coming out of the backfield. Like a guy like Jamal Charles, who is currently getting more targets than any other receiver on the Chiefs team, kind of thing, because Alex Smith checks down all the time. That sort of stuff really helps you out. So with that, you get into the roster construction. My fourth tip here is just you got to look for value. Again, you because it's a salary cap thing, you can't just have all studs. And so something last week that I saw, a lot of the guys I played against, I said I went 13 to 14, and a lot of the people I played against picked Peyton Manning. Now, he was a great pick. I mean, he scored a lot of points. He was the top scoring player in all of fantasy football. But he cost so much that the rest of the guys on their team were not of a high enough quality to even it out over time. So I went with a value play, and my guy scored 10 points less. My quarterback scored 10 points less than him. I picked Tony Romo because of the matchup, and he scored 10 points less than Peyton Manning. But in the big scheme of things, that allowed me to pick up a second stud wide receiver, whereas the other guys I were playing against were running 2 backup scrub kind of wide receivers and 1 stud. And in the end, it panned out for me. So you got to look for value. Again, you need to make sure you're getting guys that are not going to be risk. You want to be totally risk averse. Like if there's a guy who may or may not play, I will never play him because it's just too risky in this type of format. You need to find guys who are going to get work, and you need to find guys with good matchups. But even though they might be smaller than guys, they're still going to have at least a chance, a high value range to go. A couple weeks prior, I picked actually Christian Ponder the week when he ran in 2 touchdowns, and he scored as high as most guys, and I got him at a super cheap rate, which allowed me to be pretty successful on the way. So that's my last tip as far as roster construction goes. I don't have any secret magic bullet to that, but you look for value, you make sure you do your research. And the final thing that's the most important thing is never risk any amount that you would be uncomfortable risking. Don't put yourself in a position to lose anything that makes it unfun. And like I said, sometimes the most fun part about this is doing the research. If you're really looking to make money, I don't know that this is really the thing to do.